All right, amid the sexual misconduct scandal sweeping the nation, growing outrage over a still-secret shush fund that uses your money to silence the victims of sexual harassment by members of Congress. But that is just one example of swampy politicians rigging the system on your dime. The special privileges of Congress is this week's Swamp Watch. The Congressional Shush Fund, fast becoming a major national scandal, has spent more than $17 million in taxpayer dollars to settle workplace disputes on Capitol Hill since 1997. This money falls under the previously obscure Congressional Office of Compliance. Compliance with what? The sexual incontinence of dirty old men who happen to have got themselves elected to Congress? In a 2014 case, Texas Republican Blake Farenthold spent $84,000 from the fund to pay off Lauren Green, his communications director, who accused him of sexual harassment, claiming another aide told her Farenthold had sexual fantasies about her. When Green complained, she was fired. Her subsequent lawsuit got her that $84,000 taxpayer-funded settlement. This shush fund is just one way lawmakers cover up their abuse. Democrat John Conyers is reported to have paid off one of his former employees alleging sexual misconduct out of his office budget, like an expense claim. You know, staplers, photocopying, assaulting the staff and covering it up. That shush fund looks like it could be just the tip of the iceberg. But these aren't the only examples of the swamp putting itself first. We elect members of Congress to represent our interests, but they spend most of their time and our money on their interests. That's not some populist slogan. It's literally how they spend their time. A leaked PowerPoint slide from the 2013 Congressional Orientation for Newly Elected Democrats recommended that every member spend 4 hours a day in call time. That's swamp speak for raising money. An additional hour is for strategic outreach, i.e. sucking up to big donors. And then, after all that begging for money, there's an hour for, get this, recharge time. All told, the official recommendation is that lawmakers spend less than half their day doing actual congressional work, and most of it raising money for their stupid campaigns to get re-elected so they can come back and do it all over again. That's their real priority. On his way out of Washington, former Democratic Representative Steve Israel wrote a searing account of his time in Congress, explaining how he was taught that rule number one was to get re-elected. He wrote, a fundraising consultant advised that if I didn't raise at least $10,000 a week, I wouldn't be back. By law, members of Congress can't make fundraising calls from their offices, so both parties have set up call centers a few blocks away. They call it dialing for dollars. Here's a revolutionary idea. Why don't they try working for constituents? If they did, they might actually deserve some of their perks and privileges. Did you know that members of Congress get free reserve parking at DC airports, plus a dedicated call desk with major airlines, and the ability to reserve seats on multiple flights but only pay for the flight they board? Then look at their health benefits. Senators and representatives are required by law to buy insurance through an Affordable Care Act exchange, but they get a federal subsidy amounting to 72% of their premiums. The point of taxpayer subsidies is to help people on low incomes. Good luck trying to find a low-income member of Congress. A rank-and-file congressional salary is $174,000 a year, nearly $120,000 more than the average American household. That puts every member of Congress in the top 5% of incomes. Members also get an annual office allowance, with an average of over $1.2 million for a House member and over $3 million for a senator. Theoretically, those expenses are available for public scrutiny. But look at one of the expense reports. They're so vague you could hide anything in them, like payments to silence sexual harassment victims. Transparency never looked so murky. Now, you might think the DC gravy train stops when members of Congress leave office. Come on, this is the swamp we're talking about. Depending on age and length of service, members can receive a lifelong pension of 80% of their salary. That adds up to $139,200 in annual taxpayer-funded retirement benefits for life. Compare that to the average retirement income for Americans 65 and over, $31,700 a year. And finally, check out this ridiculous perk. The right to smoke in their offices. The District of Columbia has banned smoking in public spaces, but Congress gets around it by decreeing that the district's laws and regulations do not apply to the functions or property of the federal government. How fitting that our swampy lawmakers can just decide that local laws apply to everyone but themselves. Former Speaker John Boehner certainly took advantage. He was an infamous Capitol Hill smoker. When his successor moved into his office, Paul Ryan had to spend taxpayer dollars on an ozone machine to, quote, detoxify the environment. Detoxify the environment. I think that applies to more than just the stench of John Boehner's office, don't you?